We are still living in the midst of the golden age of reselling. Did you know that the US used clothing market reached $43 billion in 2023, up from $23 billion in 2018? Estimates show that it will reach $73 billion by 2028, increasing an average of 11% annually. Not only that, but I think we live in a very specific pocket of time in which it's really possible to run a thriving solo e-commerce business. If you think about it, 30 years ago, eBay didn't exist. So if you wanted to run a pre-owned clothing business, you'd have to do it in a brick and mortar location and sell just to your local market. And in 30 years from now, I really think that AI could completely transform reselling so that it looks nothing like it does now. So I do think it's a good idea to get in while the going is good, but there's one problem. The going is so good that it has become more competitive than ever before. When I started reselling 7 years ago, it was much easier to sell clothing brands that you'd come across commonly at the thrift store. Nowadays, a lot of those brands are oversaturated on places like Poshmark and eBay. So weighing out both the incredible opportunity of reselling today with the increasingly competitive landscape, I wanted to pose this thought experiment. If I wanted to go from $0 to $100,000 in sales in 2025, what would I do? And this video is my answer to that question. Of course, and I cannot state this strongly enough, this is just my answer to the question. It is not the answer to the question. I would be really curious to hear what your answer to this question is in the comments down below. But after reselling full-time for 7 years, selling over 15,000 pieces of inventory, running a six-figure reselling business for many years, which actually peaked at $250,000 in sales, this is what I would do. But first I need to tell you something real quick. If you didn't watch my video last week, which I'll link up on the screen, Matt and I are launching Fern. Fern is the ultimate reselling business solution software that takes care of your cross-listing, your inventory management, your bookkeeping, your analytics, all in one place. If you haven't already, head on over to fern.co. You can join the waitlist and I will notify you as soon as we go live in your inbox. I am so excited for y'all to try it out and I cannot wait to hear what you think. Okay, back to the video. So the first thing that we want to establish in order to come up with what I would do to get to six figures is my business model. This is the bedrock, the foundation upon which we build everything else. If you don't know what your business model is for your reselling business, I actually do have a video that I'll link up on the screen that's pretty helpful. But these are the stats that you're going to want to look to acquaint yourself with what your business model is and to set goals for what you want it to be. Okay, let's start with ASP, or average sales price. I would focus on, and it's a difficult thing to do and it takes a lot of intentionality, but I would focus on $100 average sales price. I've recently made this decision for my own reselling business and so far I really think it's the right one. If you want to hear about why I made that decision, I'll link the podcast episode that I did up on the screen. Mainly because if you focus on a business model with a lower ASP, you'll be stuck as a volume seller, which a lot of people are successfully, but for me at least, it leads to extreme burnout. With a higher ASP, you will spend as much time in your reselling business, but that time will be allocated more towards sourcing proper inventory, and you'll spend much less time processing that inventory and listing it. And at least for me, I love sourcing. That's why I got into reselling. I really don't love listing and photographing especially. So if I actually want to be consistent in my reselling business and I want to enjoy my path to six figures, I would choose a higher ASP. The next stat you want to look at is sell-through rate. Sell-through rate is a term that's thrown around a lot within the reselling community. In the eBay world, they're oftentimes referring to a 90-day sell-through rate, and that's because that's a parameter that eBay arbitrarily chose to show sold data for. But within the context of this video, I'm talking about a monthly sell-through rate, which means the number of items that you sold within the month divided by the pieces of inventory that you had in stock. So if you sold 20 pieces of inventory and you had 100 pieces of inventory in stock, that would be a 20% sell-through rate. Luckily, I don't have to calculate sell-through rate in my business because I can use Fern to do that for me. It's a stat that's on the analytics page. For me, the sell-through rate that I would focus on is 30%. And in my experience, a 30% sell-through rate is actually quite aggressive. It means that you're not only picking up items that will sell for $100, but you're picking up items that will sell for $100+ quickly. It's important not to overprice your items. It means you're accepting offers, even if you think you could sell it for a little bit more. And it means that you like to move it.
I like to move it, move it.
Okay, so in order to get to a six-figure reselling business with a $100 ASP and a 30% STR, you might be asking yourself the following question. How many pieces of inventory am I going to need? How many should I be listing each month? And how long is it going to take to get to 6 figures in sales? Okay, so let's take a look at this very important but often neglected equation for resellers. Your monthly sales revenue is equal to the number of pieces of inventory that you have times your average sales price times your sell-through rate. So let's do a little bit of algebra and find the number of pieces of inventory that we need. So first we'll need to figure out your monthly sales revenue. 100,000 divided by 12 is $8,333.33. That's what you're aiming to make in sales each and every month. $8,333.33 equals the number of inventory that you need to have times your ASP 100 times your sell-through rate 0.3. Do a little bit of algebra and you will come up with 277.77 pieces of inventory, or let's round up, 278 pieces of inventory. As most resellers can tell you, that's actually not that much inventory. You could store that amount of inventory on 3 shelving units, and there's a good chance that you have a place somewhere in your house to store 3 shelves. So you could easily run a 6-figure reselling business out of your own home. So the question is, how many listings should you be getting up each month? And that's a good question, and the answer really depends upon your resources. The thing about a high ASP business model is that it typically has higher COGS, or cost of goods, than your average reselling business model. It's typically pretty expensive to acquire items that will sell for $100 plus. You can easily rack up an average cost of goods of $20, for instance. $20 times 278 pieces of inventory equals $5,560. That's definitely not chump change. Most of us don't have an extra $5,560 laying around that we can just throw into a business to get started. But you don't have to have $5,500 in order to build a $100,000 reselling business. You can start with what you have and then aggressively reinvest until you get to 278 listings. And then at that point, once you get to 278 listings, you should have a well-oiled machine of a reselling business. And then if you're happy to stop growing at that $100,000 mark, you can reinvest what you need and then pocket the rest. If you're truly starting out at $100, like this thought experiment suggests, I would first go around my house and try to find anything and everything that I could sell in order to create some startup capital. So let's say you're able to sell some things laying around the house and scrape up $400, and then you reinvest 100% of everything you make until you get to your goal. It would take you a little over 7 months in order to get to 278 listings and hit your monthly sales goal, at which point you would just need to source and list 83 pieces of inventory every month in order to hit your goals. And if your average cost of goods was $20, then you would just need to spend about $1,660 in order to replenish that inventory every month. And then after fees and shipping, etc., you can pocket the rest. That sounds easy enough, right? Why isn't everyone doing this? Well, the answer to that question is this, and I can already hear it in the comment section. It actually isn't that easy to find inventory that will sell for $100 plus quickly. For the vast majority of us, we're not going to be able to find that type of inventory if we stop into our neighborhood Goodwill for a few hours a week, which admittedly, myself included, is what most resellers do. Most resellers go to the same thrift stores week after week for about the same amount of time each week, and they just sell the best stuff that they come across, which isn't wrong. And you can build a business model that way, but it is going to pigeonhole you in an average sales price of about $25 to $60 depending on where you live. And again, you can create a 6-figure business sourcing that way, but you'll have to commit 2 or 3 or 4 times more time and effort into processing, photographing, listing, inventorying, and shipping. And as a solo reseller, that can be really draining, and it's really easy to become inconsistent. So instead, if you want to adopt a business model like this one, there are 2 things that you need to do that very few resellers actually do on a consistent basis. Number 1 is research. Number 2 is switching from a passive sourcing strategy to a more proactive sourcing strategy. Instead of being entirely subjected to whatever is donated to your local thrift store that week, you would instead need to become laser focused on the type of inventory that you're looking for, and then be resourceful in figuring out how to acquire that type of inventory. The way that I've figured out how to do this for my business is by going to buy-sell trade stores. I go to primarily Buffalo Exchange and Crossroads Trading Company, which are two chain companies that exist in different locations throughout the United States. And in order to keep my cost of goods low, I'll go to Goodwill Outlet, buy a bunch of stuff there, take it to these buy-sell trade stores. They'll buy a lot of that stuff from me, give me a credit, which subsidizes my inventory purchases. Additionally, I've just started sourcing another way that I'm super excited about that you can do anywhere in the country, and I'm creating a video on it soon, so stay tuned for that. But there's also retail arbitrage. You can network and find consignment clients. You can do garage sales in the nicer part of town. You can watch liquidation sellers on Whatnot, and so many more options that just take some trial and error to find. The point is, if you want to adopt this business model, you have to be scrappy, proactive, constantly trying out new sourcing methods instead of just waltzing into your neighborhood Goodwill and hoping for the best. And again, I've said this enough times, I think, throughout this video, but this is what I would do. It is not what you have to do or what anyone has to do. You can be a very successful reseller, and many people are doing a completely different business model. Every business model has pitfalls, and this one does too. It will take a little bit longer in order to take money out of your business. For instance, if you go 7 months working day in and day out on your reselling business, not to ever take a single dollar out, that can be draining. And if you would rather start seeing the dollar signs in your bank account, there's other business models that provide that, but those are a lot more work and can lead to burnout, like I said. It just depends on what you want, but this is what I would do, and I think it's really important to approach your reselling business knowing what you're doing with intentionality, making sourcing decisions that align with your chosen business model, and being clear about what trajectory your reselling business is currently on, and being clear about the trajectory you want it to be on. Okay, let me circle back to something that I brought up earlier, and that is research. As with any business, and as a reseller, you are running a business, it's really important to know who your customer is. And every business model is gonna have a slightly different customer. This is one of the main things that separates a professional reseller from a hobby reseller. But research is especially important for a higher ASP business model because customers who are paying $100 plus for a pre-owned clothing item are typically going to be brand and trend conscious. And the brands and trends that are selling for a lot of money quickly are constantly changing. I talked about how I research Bolo brands in my Bolo brands video that I did recently. I'll link that up on the screen. However, it's also really important to research what people are shopping for in traditional retail stores now. And you can do this by, going onto Shopbop or going onto Revolve.com and browsing what styles, what brands people are shopping for now. You can subscribe to magazines, you can watch fashion influencers on YouTube or Instagram. There are a variety of ways of staying attuned to what is selling well now. And again, I want to put an asterisk here that what's showing up on the runway is not necessarily what's showing up in what people are actually wearing day to day. I wouldn't equate those two necessarily, but there's definitely research you can do to look for what the average $100 plus customer is looking for. And this baseline knowledge of what's selling well now is really important as you head into the thrift store or the buy-sell trade store or the garage sale. But of course, you're gonna come across what you come across. And so it's really, really important to always check comps. If you're paying up for anything, check comps. It's your best risk mitigation tool as a reseller, and it takes 1 minute. I know it's tedious, I know it's boring, but it's really important to just do it. Okay, so that's my business model. Again, it's the foundation upon which I'm going to build my house, and it's really important to establish it, but it's not everything. There are a bunch of very important other things that you need to focus on in order to build a successful reselling business. And of course, I'll continue to dedicate videos to those things as well. But for now, here's a quick list of a few things I would do in order to grow my 6-figure reselling business efficiently. First of all, you've got to get a business bank account. If you don't already have this, make it a priority. It's really important to keep your business expenses separate from your personal expenses. It will make everything down the road as you build your reselling business easier. Next, You must have an inventory storage solution. I'll be creating a video about mine soon. Next, I really do believe it's important to cross-list your items to the 3 biggest reselling platforms in the United States, which are eBay, Poshmark, and Mercari. Each one of these platforms has different customer bases. And so while there is some overlap, there's a lot of people who only buy from eBay. There are a lot of people who only buy from Poshmark and Mercari. So in order to increase your sell-through rate, you want to get as many eyeballs on your listings as possible. This is one actually very easy way to do that. Number 4, I wish I would have done this from day one, but you want to maintain organized bookkeeping solutions throughout the year. Number 5, create systems for all of your processes that are as efficient as possible. And lastly, you're going to want to audit your performance and make adjustments as necessary in order to make sure you are on the right trajectory. Luckily, Fern, which I mentioned earlier, can help you with a lot of these things on this list. Again, you can cross-list, you can manage your inventory, you can do your bookkeeping, and more, all within Fern. So again, head on over to fern.co to check it out. But no matter what software that you use, the sooner you start treating your reselling business like a real business with streamlined systems for each and every process within it, the sooner you'll start to see results, and the easier it will be, like muscle memory, coming back to your business time and time again. All right, well, that is the video. I am really curious to hear your thoughts on everything that I just discussed. Is this type of business model something that would be doable for you? Why would you want to do it? Why wouldn't you want to do it? What kind of business model are you pursuing within your reselling business? There's definitely a lot of room for debate within this topic, which I love. I love discussing this. Reselling, how to build a successful reselling business. So if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. I'll be doing more videos like this and on other topics that I mentioned. And again, this is just my perspective. I love to hear yours. All right, that's it. I'll see y'all in the next one. Okay, love y'all. Bye.